So, guys, I love being able to refer people to resources that I think are helpful. And there are a lot of coaching resources out there, but I do have a podcast that I want to recommend. She actually also has a YouTube channel, but I don't know that she's posting a lot lately. And I'm not sure why the podcast was so short. Technically, there were 4 seasons, but it was only recorded and published for 2 years. So it's from 2018 to 2019. So while there are a decent number of episodes, it actually won't take you that long to crush through them. And her name, and you may know her, I did not, but it was Rhonda Britten, and she has a podcast, or had a podcast more accurately, called Master Coach Mindset. And I was disappointed. Well, one, it didn't come out until 2018, so I found it shortly after that, maybe 2019. But I was disappointed that I didn't find it earlier, that I didn't discover her earlier, especially when we were training new coaches. One of the things that I think coaches have this tendency to do here is to avoid friction. I've talked about this. I'm not talking about being combative with participants or clients, but what I'm talking about is leaning in to friction. And financial coaching in particular, and we can talk a little bit about this, but I think you have a duty to warn, right? When someone is coming to you for life coaching or business coaching or career coaching, the reality is you don't necessarily know what the answer is. And that's why we say things in coaching like the answer is within you, or you are your best expert, right? These are signs that the answers, the information that we're getting can't be disproven. But in finances, it can be. In finances, we can boil a lot of things down to math, and either this is better or not, or this is worse or not, right? And there are just black and white answers. But when we were talking about like people's mindsets and their values and their interests and their passions, right? That's stuff we can't necessarily disprove. Now, we can help kind of dig a little deeper and figure out if it really is or if there's other things with it. But what I like about the financial coaching is that you do have this duty. When someone says, "Hey, I put money into my 401k this year and I always take it out at the end of the year for Christmas gifts," right? Well, that's okay. It may be legal, but it's probably not mathematically optimal. And there's probably a reason for this. And it's probably a reason that this person is under the impression that it might be good. And what I want to say is that I bring that up because I've actually had that, right? I've had people that use their employer retirement account for saving for holiday gifts. And when I discovered it, when it was brought up, I was able to express why it wasn't good. There are numerous examples where I have come across people that are doing something that they think is right because they understand some of the high level rules, but they don't understand the nuance or the detail of it. Right? I've had people that moved money out of an IRA into a brokerage account. They did a premature distribution so that they could buy mutual funds. Right? Obviously, you can buy mutual funds within an IRA, within a retirement account, but some people don't know that. Some people are, read something and they're like, "Hey, I've got to go to this company to buy my mutual funds, and this blog post looks really great, and I'm going to move my money." All right. So there are things that you will see that happen that are just suboptimal. Right answer, wrong answer kind of thing. And you have a duty to warn. And if you are not warning on those things, if you're not willing to lean into the friction, if you're not willing to burst the bubble or do the correction, because you have seen, hey, in so many life coaching types of situations or career coaching, there's no wrong answer, then you are not really doing your job. And I think when you see all these life coach situations and it's all very supportive, very motivational, how do we take what you want to do and make it a reality? You think that it's always just going to be supportive role. Well, what I really like about Rhonda Britten is that I believe she's either a life coach or a career coach. It really doesn't even matter to me, but she's not a financial coach by trade. But what I love is that she leans into the friction. Now, I am not saying try to find friction. I'm not trying to find resistance when it's not there. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to create a tough situation for people. In fact, there are times when I really like people. 99% of the time, they are spot on in their analysis, but sometimes they get something wrong. Sometimes they don't understand how performance is measured in investments. They don't understand what the withdrawal rate means, that it's not guaranteed, those types of things, right? So sometimes I have to bring it up and sometimes I don't want to because it's like, hey, you're smashing on so many other things. My instinct doesn't want to correct you, but my training and my commitment to helping you improve means that I have to bring these things up because I don't want to let it pass, and you just assume that you validated it from me, right? So what I love about Rhonda is that she leans in, and she is one that embraces friction on some of these things that are actually a little bit more internal, right? So I've heard her in some of these episodes, and they're great. I mean, she's a bit of a fast talker, she's a bit of a loud talker, she's a little bit like me in some ways. I've never met her. I think she's been in the business a long time, but when people say, "Hey, I want to leave my job and I want to go out and make money and I want to have some freedom," she kind of leans in. And I don't remember all the exact episodes or anything, but at one point she's like, "Oh, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to leave your job?" Right? So normally, what in a lot of coaching training you might say is like, "That's great, you want to leave your job, you want freedom, how do we make that happen?" And those are all fine tactics, but what I like is that she's trying to dig deeper, right? That definitely coach mastery. Let me understand this more, because what you say sometimes connects with what we know we should do or what we think we should do, but it doesn't really connect with the underlying value. And sometimes there are these subconscious things that are happening that are really manifest themselves, and then we kind of put a label on it. We pick an excuse or we pick a reason, and then we keep repeating that and we believe it ourselves, but sometimes underneath it all there's another reason for it. So I love the fact that she goes into it, and sometimes she really presses people. And one of the things, especially on the calls where she is taking inbound calls from other coaches who are thinking about going into life coaching, I think those are really valuable because she's actually working with people as opposed to just kind of telling a story about her working with someone. And she is willing to poke the bear, if that makes some sense. She is willing to go there. And what I like about it is it makes us less self-conscious, and it kind of proves to me that you're not worried so much about yourself. I think a lot of cases coaches are worried about keeping a person as a client. They're worried about the income stream. They're worried about taking care of themselves, and they're not doing the best thing for the client. I would rather lose a client and have a client unhappy and never want to come back and say that was the worst experience ever than to validate something that's wrong or bad for them, right? That is not something I want to do. I have a duty to warn. They have hired me to be an advocate in their best interest. And so that's my top priority. And if they never want to come back, if they don't want to refer anyone, so be it. So be it. But what I love about Rhonda is that she really seems to have people's best interest at heart. Sometimes she gives them advice. I know we stay away from that word, but advice that is contrary to what they want to do. I've heard people talk about, "Hey, I want to leave and start my own business." And she's like, "You shouldn't leave. You should stay at your job. You should learn how to find satisfaction in what you're doing. You have a great job." It sounds to me like there are only one or two peripheral things about your job that you don't like, and yet you're magnifying them. So I love the fact that she calls people out on that, because it's showing that she's putting their interests first, like their well-being first, and not just placating them and say, "Yeah, leave your job," knowing that in most cases 80 or 90% of these people aren't going to make it in this business. So why would we do that, right? Why would we play the odds like that? So anyway, listen, I'm going to try to put a link to her podcast in the description. I know there's a lot of places that you can get it from, Apple, Spotify, all these places. And what I would say is they are worth downloading and listening to. And like I said, there's only a couple years of these podcasts. There aren't that many. They aren't super long. But what I think, what you get from it is that there is just, and I'm not saying you have to emulate her. That just might not be your personality. What I'm saying is that it's not all roses sometimes, that it's not challenging clients, that it is bringing up things that might be difficult to talk about for the client and for you, right? And to lean in when you have a duty to warn and you have that obligation to your client. So that's why I bring her up. And I've really enjoyed listening to her. I've listened to all of them, but since they've been unpublished or they have not created new episodes in the last year, I haven't listened to her recently. But sometimes I'll go back and just download some of the additional ones. And because they're not new, you might have to go back and actually mark them for download, because you can't just subscribe and expect them to show up in your feed. So that's my advice. Rhonda Britten, Master Coach Mindset Podcast. I'll see you later.